Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. We have heard so much at this event about the importance of communication in the dealership. And with us today are two experts on that topic. They are Coralie Zoof, the author of Five-Star Service Advisor, and Marco Zwanenberg, our resident expert technician. Coralie and Marco, welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thank you.
Thank, thank you, Ted. Great to be on again. Good to be here with you guys. Let's do this.
Great to have you back. Marco, you and I have seen so much in the last several years here on the roundtable. A lot of references to you and a lot of thanks to you along the way, I'm hearing. So, congratulations on all your success. And
Well, thank you.
you know what? You've really brought to light the technician's perspective. And we're very grateful to you for bringing that out. So, thank you on behalf of the Fixed Ops community.
It's my pleasure. I got plenty more.
All right, I'm sure you do. And with us today is Coralie Zoof. I mentioned earlier she's the author of a book called Five-Star Service Advisor. She communicates and she teaches automotive service advisors. And I thought I would begin today, Coralie, with you on the importance of communication. What is a common scenario, Coralie, that you have come upon and continue to see in dealership in terms of communication between the advisor and the technician?
There's a couple of them. The first one I'd like to start off with is not getting recommendations back to us in a timely manner. When you're getting to the end of a service and then the recommendations come into us, it doesn't give us any time to prepare the estimates.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting scenario. Marco, what's your take on that?
I'm a big fan of quarter time. Most of you are familiar with what that is. That first you check the car out top to bottom, as you've seen in one of my latest LinkedIn posts. Get the car up in the air so you can also inspect the inside of the tires and the bottom of the vehicle. But I always stick with I do not give you an estimate until I have diagnosed the original problem the customer brought the car in for. So that's my stipulation on that part.
So, Marco, primary concern first is what you're looking at, of course.
Correct. Correct.
That's
All
a
right.
very good one.
Yep.
In terms of like people or technicians that are new in the industry, when they're just starting off going through their checklist, so your first recommendation would be get the vehicle in the air, do your inspection, and then that leaves the draining of the oil and such, and then able to get the recommendations into the advisor when that's happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. Depending on what MPI you use, and I'm sure that most of us on here use MPIs, and please use them. They're a very, very valuable tool for our industry. But it has to go through parts, it has to go through the advisor, then the advisor has to contact the customer. And with most technicians nowadays only working off of one bay, I don't want to take the car off and bring it on back later. Let's just keep it going. So I'm a big fan of doing the inspection first, get the estimate in, and then we will get to what the car is in for. But like I said, with the exception for diagnose the primary concern first.
Marco, I got to ask you, why is it here in 2023 that even now there are some technicians at more than one dealership who, after all this time, don't do the MPI, or maybe they've done it and maybe they've slacked off on it, and it's not every car consistently or every vehicle. Why is that?
Honestly, it puzzles me as much as it does everyone else. To me, it's a money making tool. We check the car out anyways because we want to find upsells. We want to find things to bring to the customer so we can all make a little bit extra money off of it. But to me, it also is a CYA. It protects myself, the reputation of the dealership. What if the car was just in for a service? I botched the MPI, and 80 miles down the road, the car has a flat tire and ends up in another dealership. And then they get a list of, oh, sir, you need this, 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 and this, and this. It's like, but I just had my car in for a service. See, here's the report. Everything is good. So it is protection, it is insurance, and it's a moneymaker. Why it's not done by everyone at every dealership, I can't answer that. It bothers me as much as it does everyone else.
And Coralie, the aftermarkets, they have an MPI they're using. I know that. Is it as consistent as it would be, let's say, at the dealership level?
I think people can be the same way, hit and miss, doing it and not doing it. But I was just thinking to what Marco was saying about getting it completed and getting all the recommendations to the customer, because when they break down shortly down the road from you, if they know that you just did the inspection and didn't tell them about those things, they're not going to be coming back to get their vehicle serviced and when it's time to purchase a new vehicle either. So it's really important for customer retention.
I like it.
Exactly. It's a retention tool.
Marco, coming back to that communication between the tech and the advisor and the tech, what's a scenario that you see all too often that you want to call out?
One of my biggest gripes, and for a lot of guys in the industry, is incomplete information and a lack of information. When I get a work order placed in front of me and all it says client states there is a leak. Okay, are we talking oil, fluids, coolant? Are we talking a water leak into the car? Or there is a noise? Okay, great. What people don't understand is that we as technicians, we get a snapshot of your car. You know your car from driving it every day. Plus, as technicians, we get in so many vehicles from the same vehicle as you have, from old to new, that we are in tune with a lot of different noises. So give us the information. Most people have cell phones nowadays. You can take a picture or a video of a warning that shows up on the dashboard. You can take a sound clip, even a little video of a noise. For service advisors to go the extra step and say, like, sir, ma'am, when do you hear that noise? How do you make it happen? Can it easily be reproduced? Steps like that will help us tremendously, which then saves time on diagnosing. So all around, it's, again, we're back to efficiency and making money. It's all about the hours, like someone famous that we know would say.
Someone famous that we know. Coralie, let's talk about that. There's a fine line, when you work with advisors and all advisors, between, asking the right questions, the open-ended questions like Marco just had, who, what, when, where, why, how, and, not diagnosing it out on the drive. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I've been guilty of that too many moons ago when I was an advisor and you're just too busy and don't know what kind of questions to ask. And sometimes the customers aren't that cooperative either. So knowing what to ask is kind of half the battle. In my book that I wrote, I did compile a checklist that has for noises, that has for fluids, that has also when it's happening, which can be really helpful to print out a copy or to send digitally and get people to go over that before they come in, because they might not think of it when they're right at your desk, but if you send it to them a few days before and get them thinking about it. Another thing is when a customer comes in, they might not be the principal operator of the vehicle. It might be, the daughter bringing it in for her parents or the spouse bringing it in, and it's usually the other person that drives it. So really getting these questions before they're at your desk is very helpful as well.
Marco, what do you think?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I know there's many manufacturers that actually have sheets available on their tech systems, flowcharts of noises, of leaks, of issues with radios. Because let's not forget, with all the technology in the car nowadays, sometimes that is a big issue as well. And another simple, this is a very simple one, and Coralie will fully agree with me. When a vehicle is taken in and the service advisor notices that the car has wheel locks on it, how hard is it to ask, sir, ma'am, do you know where your wheel lock is? Get it from the customer and place it in the cup holder. You know how much time we waste looking for wheel locks?
Yeah.
Or if they don't have one, then you waste the half hour, then the advisor goes to call them, and then you have to look at extracting them.
Exactly.
Going back to getting the information to the tech, a number of years ago, Mazda here in the US had a tool that they introduced called the Tell the Tech tool. And it was a tool, Coralie, for the service advisor. It was, if you printed it out, it would be a one pager, but it was all the things to check off that you would tell the tech, based on your information, on your, fact finding with the customer, with the, during the write up process. Coralie, do you think it's important? We always, we talk about the importance of a walk around. What if we can't do a walk around? I mean, how does the advisor get a lot of that information from the customer?
I like to think of it like when the customer comes in, sometimes they're in a rush and they have places to get and they're dropping their vehicle off like hours beforehand. So to come up with ways to get that information from them before they come in, like when we're confirming the appointments the day before, if we're sending an email or sending a text and we know that we're diagnosing an issue, to get that information from them before is really the way to be proactive.
Corley, what's another scenario that you want to bring up today while we have Marco here with us?
Let's see here. I'd say one of the ones that's kind of a big one would be technicians that are turning down work. It might be on a make that they're not familiar with or don't want to work on, or that isn't their brand of vehicle, or maybe it's doing oil change and tires and such like that.
It's all money, isn't it?
It is, yes.
I mean, in the first place, I wonder if a technician is working, not wanting to work on a car that obviously he put an estimate in for. Why is the technician working on a car he's not familiar with in the first place? In the second place, there's always going to be someone in the shop that would want to do that job. We all have our favorites to do. Like, call me crazy, but my favorite is interiors. I love doing dashboards and headliners and leather on seats. I love it. Bring it on. Everyone else hates it, so I make good money on it. So maybe, you know, you're kind of looking at a prima donna status there. What can you really do about that? You'll see that in pretty much every level of the dealership, any level of any kind of business. It's just something you're going to have to work with, unfortunately. Teach them.
Yeah, so kind of keeping it in mind who enjoys those jobs, and when
Right.
they pop up, you know who to give it to. Like, this person can really, they've diagnosed that problem a million times, so they're the ones that it should go to on a specific vehicle that might not be familiar in your dealership.
Right, and if you have a good dispatch available for your shop, then issues that you're talking about really shouldn't come to light very often. Of course, there's always stuff that we go like, oh God, I have to do this, but you'll always make up for it. To me, it's all money.
Marco, I've seen a lot of posts on social media that you've put, you know, with your hands and such. But why is it I've probably seen more posts from you on interiors that are and dashboards that are taken apart than I've ever seen in my whole life? That must be a specialty.
Again, it's something that most technicians shun away from because it is very involved, and behind all that nice soft stuff that you feel in the interior, there's a lot of sharp stuff behind that. I sent you a picture, was it a week or so ago, Fred, about doing a main vehicle wiring harness, which meant stripping the entire car bumper to bumper. I love doing that kind of stuff. Most technicians shy away from it. Why? Because it takes a lot. It really takes a lot. But again, your cell phone is your friend. I take pictures as I go, and I keep the parts with the fasteners, the bolts, the nuts, the screws, all neatly laid out, so I know what goes where. But I enjoy doing that for sure. Yeah, you're right in that.
And I guess with that kind of work too, it's a very clean kind of work. You have to be very careful that you don't leave any marks on the leather, marks on the dash as well. So not everybody is as keen to do that either. So you have to be very meticulous.
Corley, I like the point Marco made just a little earlier in our conversation about the customer. You know, we all have cell phones, right? And they're in the vehicle all the time where the tech is just a snapshot. The customer that's a good point. They can use their camera, you know, to take photos and, you know, document things that they can share with the advisor.
Yeah, they can text and email it in beforehand as well. So that could be very helpful rather than thinking about it the morning of. So when they book the appointment, perhaps it's something the appointment coordinator can look at doing. If we're booking in for a something that needs to be diagnosed, then ask them to email or text in videos, symptoms to help the technician and save them money.
Marco, I have a question for you.
Sure.
How do you feel as a technician with all the tools that are out there now today in 2023, you know, where you as a tech can in turn also use and probably do use that video as well, you know, to communicate with the customer? I know in the past it's probably been frustrating for techs if they're working with an advisor where they know that that particular advisor, may not get the sale, okay, may not get the yes on the recommendations. How is it now for a tech to be able to use these tools and go under the car with a camera and be able to have some audio on there, some verbiage for the customer?
I think it actually comes down to multiple different facets when it comes to that. It allows for technicians to remain in their base where we belong, where we make money, where we make the company money. B, seeing is believing. I've always been, as you know, Ted, a big advent of service clinics. People usually don't have an idea about how complicated their vehicles are and what's all involved. So seeing is truly believing. It creates trust. It creates a sense of, wow, it's like I'm actually getting to see this without having to go there. It's like they're going the extra step for us. But here's also the good thing. Most systems that utilize these functions or have the capabilities, it gets logged in the system, which gives management then a good opportunity to really look at why is this advisor lacking in sales? Is it because, oh no, wait, the technician uploaded all this, all the comments are here, all the so that will lead management then to maybe coach the advisor more, or maybe buy Corley's book and give it to him.
I love it. I love it. Marco, what's one more scenario that you want to call out, in terms of communicating between the tech and the advisor, because communication is so important.
Well, what Corley mentioned about it takes too long to get an estimate. Um, it takes too long to get an approval. That's also a big issue for us back in the shop, depending on how involved the diagnosis is. But if I have a car halfway torn apart and an hour later I still haven't gotten a yay or nay, and I only have one bay to work on, what am I going to do? Not eat that day or put the car back together? And it always happens at 5 minutes after I did that. Here comes the advisor. I sold the job. Right. Now I have to start over again. So it's all a matter of timing. Get the estimate out there early. That's why I'm saying get it out there before you start working on the vehicle. It doesn't take much to change oil. So lift that car up, check it over, get your recommendations in. While you're working on the car, what it was brought in for, the advisor has a chance then to get the estimate all together, call the customer, and get an approval or a denial. Either way, we know where we're standing, and then get that back to the technician as soon as possible. As working with parts to make sure that the parts are on hand, and if not, we have an ETA on when the part will be there.
Corley, great info for Marco there.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get all the customers' information, their contact information when they come in, because that can be sometimes where all of our time goes. It takes a bit to create the estimate, but then when you don't know exactly how to contact the customer, you try their home number and they're not answering, and you leave them a voicemail, and then you try calling their cell phone, they're not answering, but you didn't ask them before what is the best way to contact you today. They're going to be at work and they can't answer their phone, so text might be the best way, or they might not be able to have their phone on them where they are, so email might be the best way. So it's very important when the customer first comes in to get the best way to contact them that day, because they could have a dentist appointment and be unreachable, so you need to call their spouse to get a decision made.
Marco, you've been a tech for a long time, even before there was texting. I know that. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you seen a change in the time for the approval process since we've had the advent of texting, and then now it's super mainstream? There's no added, in most cases, added data charge for a text. It's all part of somebody's plan. Have you seen that change?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when I started out, we were doing MPIs on paper.
Yeah.
And how easy it is for stuff to get lost like that. Now everything is logged in a computer. So the pictures, the videos, the recommendations, parts information, contact information, it is all there. Which then also the great thing is, should an advisor not be there that day, it's real easy for another advisor to just go clickety clickety click. Here it is. And with texting, emailing, calling nowadays, it has definitely gotten a lot better. I do like what Coralie brought to the point here, is that ask what is the best way to contact you today. Don't just assume, and don't go off of last visit either. Well, that's an excellent point, Coralie. I really like that. But to answer your question, Ted, absolutely. And I only see that going forward and the communication time getting shorter and shorter.
Corley, one more
Mhm.
scenario that you want to bring up with Marco. And by the way, what a great benefit to have both of you here today, to talk about this. I'm actually enjoying this, as I'm sure the audience is as well.
I kind of want to go back to what Marco was talking about a little bit ago about technicians and being able to sell things and being comfortable with the knowledge that they're being given, and a lack of product knowledge, being able to see the pictures that video that the technician is sending back to them. But when I was starting out, and I did my first year apprenticeship, but didn't know everything. And there's new things coming out every year, right? New technologies that we're not familiar with. So until I personally get familiar with it, I walk out into the shop and view it with my own eyes, because it's one thing to see the picture, but when you can see where it is on the car, what's happening exactly, that's sort of how I get my knowledge and get comfortable with the technicians. Because if somebody's saying that something is rusty, until you gauge where
Mhm.
they are in like the scale, I find that's easiest for me for technical knowledge, helping advisors. Personally, I don't know
Okay.
how comfortable you are, Marco, with advisors coming into the shop and seeing the vehicles that you're working on, or explaining and helping them to understand.
The way I see this, Coralie, is like the more information and the better information they can bring to the customer, the better it is for all of us. It will speed up the sale. It will speed up the money making process, and it will speed up getting this car off of my bay and get the next one in. So it's an all round win win, not just for us technicians and my paycheck, but for the customer too, to get their cars back, and for the dealership as a whole for generation of income. But also you have to think about reducing costs on loaner fleets, for example.
Good
For
point.
sure. They're few and far between right now
Yes.
for loaners. Yeah, I had
Yes.
one example where the shop, like they couldn't sell brake fluid flushes. It was taking forever. No one could do it, and they had all the knowledge about why it needed to be done and such. But until they went out into the shop and saw one being performed, the greenest service advisor likened it to a medical procedure, like getting an IV. And she's like, "Oh, it's like healthcare thing," and she compared it to something that she had experienced personally. And she's the first one to sell the flushes, and it was awesome. Like once they saw it, something clicked.
Right. And again, that's why I'm such a big fan of service clinics. Let people see what
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
is happening to their vehicle. When they understand, you got them on board. You try to sell them something that, in my eyes, is absolutely necessary, that you as the advisor agree with. But if the customer goes like, Starship Enterprise, what? And Pluto, huh? They go like, no, I want a new pair of shoes that I was going to look at. And no, 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 I don't need this. We're like, oh my God, how can you? So it is very much for advisors the ability to speak the customer's language. You're kind of a translator between the tech jargon that you get from the shop and bringing it to the customers. Like literally, hats off to you guys. I couldn't do it. I don't deal with people. I'll deal with cars.
Marco, you've mentioned a couple times here today, and you and I have discussed in the recent past, and I saw you on another panel as well here, talking about the service clinics. And Coralie, that's something that we did in the not too distant past with customers, maybe once a month, one evening a month, sometimes more. But there's a lot of show and tell there, and there we're communicating, Marco, directly with the customer and giving them
Yes.
information. Um, I'm not sure why a lot of that has gone away. It might be what happened in the last 2 or 3 years. But Mark, I'll speak to the importance of, maybe getting back to that and maybe using some new means, to be able to communicate that with the customer as well.
Absolutely. You could even do it on Zoom nowadays if you
Yeah.
really wanted to. But what I think is, for the longest time, the service department, the shop, has been this smoke and mirrors, this veil over it,
Yeah.
secrecy and mystery. And a lot of people just don't understand their cars. Once you have the car in the shop and you have the customer standing next to you and you just hook up the computer to it, and you just have it do a quick scan where it checks all the control units in the car. Most people are blown away just by knowing how many computers are in their car. Something as simple as that, that will lift that veil, lift the smoke for the service department. It will build trust, it will build knowledge. But these people now actually have a really good idea about that. And literally, you can Google this if you want to, but nowadays, cars are more complicated than a space shuttle ever was. Take that home and think about that.
And the clinics also help the customers to build a relationship with the service department as well, because it's very overwhelming when they're taking delivery of their new vehicle. You've done all of the paperwork, you need to do insurance, and then you got this new vehicle and all these toys that you want to play with in there, right? And try out these settings
Right.
and everything. And so getting introduced to the service department, it's like this small thing. But after they've had the vehicle for a month or two, to bring them in for those auto clinics to go over it and introduce them to the service department. And this is Marco. He may be one of the people working on your vehicle. These are advisors here, and just do a meet and greet.
Put a name and a face with make it personal instead of just a numbers game. That's why I really love it. The best sales guys will actually walk the customer through the service department if they're new to the dealership, and let them see how or what. And that's a fantastic way to build trust, retention, and keep building revenue.
We need to do something right on that service clinic, Marco. Long overdue. All right. While I have you both here, I got to ask one more question. There's something happening in the industry now. It's been happening now for several years. You both are aware of it. It's the over-the-air updates. It started with Tesla a little while back, and it's now on the newer cars. It's happening every single day, overnight and during the day. But there's more coming. And apparently, the manufacturers are aware that there's going to be, in the next few years, if not sooner, billions of dollars at stake, with these over-the-air updates and things that they could possibly sell to the customer separately, so on and so forth. What are your thoughts on that, on the updates that the vehicles of today and tomorrow are going to be receiving? And, should we be concerned about that? I think overall it's good for the customer, but what are your thoughts, Marco first, and then Coralie?
Personally, I don't have a big problem with it. It's the subscription services that have been talked about that certain manufacturers have introduced. I think that's a little nutty, but who am I? But the over-the-air software updates, nowadays software updates performed a lot on vehicles. A lot of vehicles get fixed with software updates, just like your phone, just like your computer. And most manufacturers pay next to nothing for an update. So to me, it's a time loss. Can it be done over the air? Perfect. I don't have to touch the car? Perfect. What I do like is it also works the other way around. There's certain manufacturers out there that I am now able to diagnose your vehicle over the air before the car even hits the shop. So I know why your check engine light is on. I know which part I'm going to need. I can have that part on hand. So when you come in, it's boom, 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 done. So there's some great advantages to it. However, I don't know if you read this post on LinkedIn not too long ago, Ted, is that a reputable software hacking company has hacked 80 vehicles from different manufacturers just by knowing their VIN. So we have to be, just like with everything else, I think that we have to be careful with our digital footprint on all of this.
Great point. Yep. Love it.
I think
Coralie,
with
your
that new
thoughts?
technology coming out, there's like a part of it that's exciting, but also a part of it that's scary. Like on my cell phone, I'm always leery to do the next update, because then what'll happen, it might wreck something there, right? But then I leave it for 3 months and don't do it, and then my microphone's not working because I didn't do the update. So it's sort of like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yep, I love it. Hey, we'll have to leave it there. I really enjoyed this segment today. I like the communication back and forth. I love the fact that Marco, you're handling the questions as a tech, and Coralie, talking about it from the service advisor perspective. So I want to ask you to come back. Let's do this again. And
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
I think we got something here. So
Awesome.
everybody, if you haven't met Marco Zwanenberg, please get acquainted. He is on LinkedIn. He's on social media. He's everywhere. And he's our resident expert technician. He's one of the founding members of the Fixed Ops Roundtable. And really, we would not have a Fixed Ops Roundtable without Marco in a lot of the things he did, even before the first roundtable, and helping to set it up and helping to convince some people, myself included, that that's important to do. So, and thank you, Marco, for all you do. Coralie, thank
Absolutely.
you. We met you last year at the roundtable, and your star is rising. Congratulations to you on your success. Everybody, if you haven't gotten the book yet, I highly recommend it. You see a lot of people on social media now are sharing it, talking about it. Some of the things that we talked about today are in the 5-Star Service Advisor. You can get it on Amazon. That's what I did. And it's a great read and a great resource. I'd recommend dealerships get it for all your service advisors and fixed ops directors. Absolutely go on Amazon right now. Pick up that book. You know, if you got 12 service advisors times 12, everybody needs to read it. The managers included as well. So a very strong and powerful read. I want to thank you both, Marco and Coralie, for being here today.
My pleasure, Ted,
Yes,
as
thanks,
always.
Marco.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Coralie. It was great.
Yeah, love it. Hey, who said we couldn't have really good communication between the advisors and the techs?
It's just a myth, Ted. It's just a myth.
Just
It'll happen. It happens.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Everybody, Coralie Zoof and Marco Zwanenberg here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.